How's it going, everyone? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, here with some Destiny 2 news. Now, I haven't talked about Destiny before on my channel, but I just like talking about the games industry and games and things that I'm interested in. So, if you have a problem with that, I do apologize, but this is actually something that I'm looking forward to. As you all would already be aware by now, Destiny 2 was announced. The other day, there was a huge streaming session where they revealed a bunch about the game, how it's improved, what's different from it, from the original game that is. And there's one particular piece of news that came out just yesterday, and if you want to read the full article that I'll be talking to, it's linked in the description below. But there was a big piece of news about how Destiny 2 would no longer be using the Grimoire website. So let me read the article from top to bottom and then I'll get into my thoughts about this particular topic. But before I do, let me ask you the question. What do you think about Destiny 2 not using the Grimoire website and trying to incorporate more aspects of the story and the lore within the game itself? Please let me know in the comments below. So the article starts by saying, committed lore enthusiasts know that the first Destiny had plenty of deep and complex science fiction storytelling to uncover, but much of it was hidden away in the Grimoire cards that could only be read in a separate online website. Bungie hopes to translate more of that narrative experience into the game proper with Destiny 2, and so there are no current plans for an expansion of the current site or a new Grimoire website for this fall's release. Quote, "There is no Grimoire on the website in Destiny 2, says project lead Mark Noseworthy in an interview with Game Informer. But in no way is it our intent to get rid of deep lore in the game. We just want to put it in the game. We want to tell the story of the places. We really want to flesh out the story of the world. A lot of the stuff that was in the Grimoire before, we want just regular people to just play and encounter in the game. For instance, after playing for hours in the European Dead Zone, they can clearly tell you what happened there." So this is pretty big and I think pretty important news for Destiny 2, and in fact I think it's incredibly positive news for the game. Now let me first talk about my experiences with Destiny before I talk about this news. Look, I was part of the original gang of players of Destiny, the original, that played the game for a little bit on launch, found that it wasn't for me, and moved on after that. And one of the biggest complaints that I had about the game is that the story and the narrative was very light inside the game itself, and I knew that there was a separate Grimoire website that you had to read if you wanted to know more aspects about the lore and the story of the game itself. Now, I'm sure many current Destiny players have a very different view of what Destiny is like today, and I have not played Destiny as a game today after all the expansions, after all the improvements to the game that I appreciate, certainly, that definitely have taken place, because I keep an eye on the games industry and news as much as I can, and trust me, I hear every single current Destiny player when they say the game has improved now, it's not like it was at launch, so I completely understand that, but all I'm doing is speaking to my experiences of the game at launch. I certainly don't doubt that the game has improved, but I'm just talking about what I felt at the time. And what I felt at the time is that the game should have included more aspects of the story in the actual game itself. Simply because the story was interesting, right? It was compelling and it was a beautiful world, it was a beautiful game that was fun to play, but beyond the point where you kind of finished the main story, if you'd even call it that, I didn't really find much of a reason to keep playing. I wasn't a big fan of the constant, shoot, kill, get weapons, etc. mechanic. And that's partly because I'm a bit of a story mark, if you will. I really lean towards games that have very, very good stories, and not so much to games that are just focused solely on gameplay. And that's a bit weird. Yes, I know they're video games first and foremost, but I like a good story, to be honest, and I just wanted to see that more incorporated into the original Destiny. So I think this is great news for Destiny 2 that I'm definitely going to be picking up, and I know, to be honest, it seems like an obvious conclusion that, of course, you should be including more aspects of the story inside the game itself. And yes, I completely agree, a game should include aspects of the story within the game itself that are just teased out as you play the game. And bear in mind, there are different layers of storytelling, there are different ways to get the game's story and narrative and history into the game itself. I'm not saying that Bungie has to present everything about the game's story directly to the player as they play the game, whether through cutscenes or radio or anything like that. There are different ways that stories can be told in video games. So first and foremost is just presenting the story to the character or to the player as they play the game, predominantly through cutscenes or characters talking to you. But then there are other ways to do so and to tease more subtle and maybe nuanced aspects of the story and the lore. And the best example that I can think of, because it's most recently in my memory, it's quite fresh, is Prey. Prey had a way of telling you the story, one, through main characters just talking to you via the radio and also just talking to you in person. Secondly as well, environmental storytelling. As you go through the world, you can just see aspects of the world that tell you about the story itself. If you see a dead enemy, or if you see a building, or if you see any kind of structure, instantly that tells you some sort of aspect of the story. And that can be anything, whether signs, creatures, however things react in the world and how they look. Environmental storytelling was certainly present in Prey. Also as well, just reading stuff on computers and terminals and books and magazines. That's probably the biggest way to get the most extensive story elements to a player. And to be honest, even though as much as I like story, I don't always read every single little piece of lore and book and computer or terminal, whatever it is, inside of a game. I'm usually content with like the main aspects of the story and subtle things here and there, but that's another way that story can be teased out to you. And yes, there are many other methods of doing so. So what I'm saying is that Destiny 2 should be incorporating all of those aspects when trying to tell the game's story to the player. But the important thing is, those things are part of the game. They're not on a separate website. And I'm not doubting the legitimacy of having a Grimoire website in the first place. Again, just like terminals or magazines or books inside of a game that contain more comprehensive lore that some players might want to read, there is certainly a use for having a separate website that goes into much more detail in terms of the narrative and the story of a game. I think the Grimoire could still serve an important use in Destiny 2, and I'm not saying that I necessarily want to see it go away completely, even though that seems to be what's happening here. But it shouldn't be the main method of storytelling, and Destiny 1 was kind of leaning towards that. You shouldn't have to read a separate website to start to learn about a game's story. It should be first and foremost presented to you inside of the game, and then for those people that want to know more, they can do side quests, they can talk to more characters, they can read more things in the game, and yes, they can go to a separate website if they choose to learn about some other things about the game's story that perhaps they may not otherwise would have if they just played the game normally. And again, that's usually subtle aspects of the game's story. It's not really like the main important stuff, but some people might want to know the background of something, or the backstory, or what happened to this character, what was their upbringing, what was this random war that happened in the past. Anything that is not fundamental to the main story and the main actual narrative you're trying to tell, you can use a Grimoire website and other elements of storytelling to present that to players that are interested. So yes, while I certainly do think that this is a positive for Destiny 2, because out of anything, I want the story to be presented in the game itself, more so than what it was in the original Destiny. I am a little bit lukewarm about the Grimoire website just going away entirely. I still think it could serve an important purpose to players that did like it and did like reading comprehensively upon the story of a game. And to be honest, that wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be someone, again, that reads every terminal, every book, and goes onto the Grimoire website. But I could certainly see and appreciate players that would want to do that. So anyways, Wastelanders, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below about this news topic. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.